Doesn't matter what the government does, they get away with it.
You've been found to have acted unlawfully this week by refusing to publish details of COVID-19 contracts. Will you resign?
No.
Doesn't matter how many people die. Doesn't matter because you sustain the support of Rupert Murdoch and Lord Rothermere and the Bartley brother. And so you can get away with anything. And that is the most dangerous situation you can have politically, because it means that there are no brakes. There's no restraint on what a government might do. And that's how you end up with an elective dictatorship. So you might have thought this is a perfect opportunity for Labour to move in and say, look, this bunch of charlatans and liars are only going to lead us into further disaster. Here we are with a new narrative, but instead we see Labour effectively buttoning its lip. And Labour are saying, well, we've got to keep our powder dry, the election is 3 or 4 years off. No, sorry, we're in the midst of a national crisis, a huge national disaster, bigger than any we've had for a very long time. You've got to stand up and say, here is the alternative vision. Here is how we can rebuild this nation into something completely different. And we have a government which just wants to get back to how things were before. Normal, they call it. How is it normal to have an economy in which a few billionaires reap most of the gains of economic growth while people at the bottom become poorer and poorer? How is it normal to be destroying our life support systems in the name of economic growth? We need a completely different economy, and we have a golden opportunity to create that economy now, but Labour is not standing up and articulating it. And by the time the election comes around, well, who knows? The opportunity might not be there at all. And it frustrates me to see Keir Starmer just dithering almost as badly as Boris Johnson dithers. The only opportunities we ever get for sweeping political change are in the wake of a major crisis. After the Second World War, for example, there was a massive crisis and we ended up with massive political change arising from that because Clement Attlee was able to step forward and say, we need to rebuild this nation on new lines. And he did that very effectively. Then we had another massive crisis in 2008 with the financial crisis. And there was a golden opportunity there for Labour to say, look, a terrible thing has happened. To stop this from happening again, we need to rebuild this nation on different lines. But it failed to do that. It just tried to get things back to the way they were before, the disastrous way that they were before. And now it's happening again. Here we are in the midst of an enormous crisis, greater than any since the Second World War. And far from standing up and articulating that alternative, Labour is effectively nodding along with the outrageous system that we have normalised, suggesting a few tweaks, but not suggesting systemic change, which is what we currently need. Now, the government, with the help of the billionaire press, is very good at just brushing things under the carpet. But can you really brush 100,000 deaths under the carpet? Can you really brush under the carpet all the people with long COVID, all the people whose livelihoods have been completely destroyed by the government's failure to get a grip on the pandemic early on? Not if the people come forward and say, enough is enough. We're not putting up with this any longer. We've had enough of being treated like the dirt under your shoe. This is a time for us to come together and demand that alternative. Demand a system which allows us to have a much greater say in politics day to day. And that's got to start with proportional representation and with getting the money out of politics. We've just got to stop politics being polluted by big money, which turns democracy into plutocracy. And we have got to come together and fill that vacuum which Labour has completely failed to fill. Politics abhors a vacuum. There are massive opportunities for people to put forward an exciting, thrilling vision of how our nation should be. And this is our moment. This is the time when we can press for systemic change. But these moments don't come up very often. And horrible and disastrous as this has all been, we have to turn this crisis into an opportunity for change. Gross misrule is the other pandemic that we face. All the elements are there, potentially, for state failure. So we need a vaccine for this other pandemic. What is that vaccine? Us. Double Down News is an antidote to the lies of the billionaire press, an antidote to the failures of the broadcast media, an antidote to the attempts by Rupert Murdoch and others to grab ever more of the media for themselves and to make us see the world as they want us to see it. If you want to see the world differently, please become a patron of Double Down News and subscribe through Patreon. Thank you.